Hi, everyone. I think we're just going to get started just because there is a limited time, as we know, for the session, and we do need to stop on time in order to allow people to go and get ready for the final plenary. So it is really, truly a pleasure for us, Yinji and I, to be able to participate in this session and interact with our speakers. We were very happy to see the contribution from you on this topic, because we believe that adjusting the financial lens is probably one of the most important aspects in the work that we do that has not been well examined. So we are looking forward to learning from you about what we need to do when we are trying to bring many aspects, including the financial lens, to help improve reduce the vulnerability and improve the viability of small-scale fisheries. We will start from Clement BRESSON and his colleague Randall, and then we would go with Tek GURUNG. So Clement, if you're ready, we would all mute our microphone and turn off our video, and we'll just enjoy the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you very much for having us. It's a real pleasure to present today. Can you see the screen? Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. So we're going to talk about Australia and Northern Australia in particular, and the sort of small-scale fisheries that are being started. Really, we're talking about very recent developments in the north of Australia, started by Aboriginal people. And my name is Clement BRESSON. I'm a PhD candidate at the Australian National University. And we've got a guest speaker with me today, Randall Bayaraka, who is a fisherman himself from Maningrida, and who you're going to hear from in a minute. So yeah, I'd like to thank my supervisory panel as well, who might be listening today. But I am very grateful for the support, obviously. As is customary in Australia, we start a presentation by paying our respect to the traditional owners of the land, so the land that we sit on today, which is the Ngunnawal people, and the land of where the research is connected. The research is taking place. So that's the land near Maningrida in Arnhem Land, so in the north of Australia, and all the traditional owners are Randall's extended family, really. So I'm very grateful for the welcome that they've given me up there, So just to talk about the approach that I'm taking in that presentation, it's really based on the preliminary findings of my PhD research that is focusing on business models and support strategies to establish Aboriginal seafood enterprises in remote communities of Australia, and from both our practical experiences from what it takes to sort of start these seafood enterprises. Now to give just a bit of context, there's a lot of interest from coastal Aboriginal communities in the Northern Territory of Australia. So that's the sort of the top of the middle, in the middle top of Australia, to start these seafood ventures. But there's been relative success so far, despite a few attempts, and there's some sort of sea rights or rights to the sea that have been given back by the government, even though these rights haven't really been fully actioned on so far. So it is very emerging, and there's really only a handful of seafood enterprises currently operating from remote communities of Australia, which I am aware it's a very, very different context to many other places in Asia Pacific. That's so I guess we are a special case with that regard, to the scale. And then so we're just going to start by hearing from Randall about if you can tell, tell people watching, why do people in Maningrida want to start fishing businesses and seafood enterprises?
Why they want it that way? Because we possibly like it's really very important to us. So in the meantime, people will see it and think about it, and always we can share together. And all them wishes that really, it's been a long journey for the people gone away, and in these days they bring their memories back because of the fish that they eat and talk about, and all that things what I'm doing the best I can from new generations to hand it over to them and learn more education, show learn all that things that the fishery is really very important to us and the community where we stay and the other regions calling out that we respect and taking it over there or coming along, watching us how to fish and taking over and passing along the fish as respect and memories of ourselves that we lost our people, and there we are.
Thank you very much, Reno. And just can you tell us a little bit about the different sort of fishing practices that are happening in Maningrida as part of the One Seafood Enterprise?
Oh, right. Well, this is about fishery and the way we do and doing all them actions and trying to go through all them situations, what we have and lost. And today it's our turn to look back and look in the front and go for it and feed the families and feed the communities, passing along songs and ceremonies, giving a presentation to them and saying, good people, and you can welcome to my area, that you can come in and you're a part of it and that you fish. It's very important to us around in my area and all over the world that they can come in for taste and they can talk about things, then we can tell them what's really for us and very important.
Yeah, thank you. And so you're, I guess now I'm just gonna talk about the fishing business in practice, and it is based on 3 different types of fishing licenses. The first type are licenses that are specifically for Aboriginal people in the coast. They call Aboriginal coastal licenses, and they're very small scale licenses. But despite the scale and the sort of small quota that they've got, they still need to follow a lot of the standards that other commercial operators have to follow. For example, there's a lot of regulation in Australia regards to the type of boats that can be used, and sort of that means that some of the operational and capital costs are going to be quite high to set up these businesses. And that's sort of the direct consequence of that is that it is actually very hard for Aboriginal coastal licenses to be viable by themselves as independent businesses. And that was partly why in Maningrida they decided to get into, in addition to these small scale licenses, get into commercial fisheries, which are the mud crab fishery and the barramundi fishery, that they are mainstream commercial fisheries. You can purchase a license on the open market from an existing operator. It's both fisheries have a limited number of licenses, and most fisheries management measures are input sort of type of measures. So they restrict the gear that can be used. plus, you know, there are also a few sort of restrictions. I'm not going to get into the details of that. And what I find important is just to highlight the real differences between the business models that mainstream operators are using and the business model that the Maningrida fishers are using, and they are absolutely totally different. So in Maningrida, the sales are really predominantly locally executed, and plus a few niche markets that are sort of markets that are interested in buying a produce that have a strong provenance story attached to it, as opposed to the mainstream commercial operators predominantly selling to wholesalers. There's also a very important concept of beneficiaries of the fishing business. And as Randall was talking about before, these fishing businesses are important, both in terms of feeding the local community that otherwise wouldn't have access to this healthy, nutritious food, but also to benefit the employees, so the actual fishermen who get to spend time on their country, protecting the sacred sites, and having, you know, keeping that strong connection to the saltwater identity that people have in Maningrida. As opposed to, you know, the mainstream commercial operators, and that's definitely a cynical view of it, because I know it's, you know, it's not fully representative of the situation, but the benefits are predominantly directed at shareholders that have invested in the business that expect a return of investment. In terms of the key biological resources as well, so Maningrida, the fishing occurs on sort of traditional customary country, you know, as opposed to being spread across the Northern Territory coast, as it is the case with mainstream commercial operators. The capital costs are different. The operating costs are actually a lot higher per kilo of fish caught in remote communities due to the remoteness that increases just every single cost, you know, especially fuel that is very expensive in remote communities. And that sort of means that, yeah, that makes it a lot harder to run financially viable enterprises. Then in addition to that, there is some government support that has to be included in the equation, and it is a fantastic thing that is happening, even though it obviously comes with a lot of strings attached to it. And then in terms of employment, another sort of very interesting difference is that commercial operators, to maximize profit, try to minimize the number of people involved. Or in Maningrida, because there is such limited employment opportunities in these communities, they try to set up businesses to employ as many people as possible. Then the governance is also very different, and I was hearing a bit from the other sessions on governance, and that's like that duality of governance that combines traditional and corporate governance that plays a strong role in Maningrida, which is very different to what happens in the mainstream fishery. And sort of to just summarize this point, you know, so Maningrida is an indigenous community-based social enterprise, you know, as opposed to try to run a profitable, like a profit-driven business. It's also, interestingly, a small-scale operation within larger-scale commercial fisheries. As I was saying, there's two mainstream fisheries, the mud crab and the barramundi, and Maningrida operates just at a very different scale to that. So legal pluralism in the sense that, Randall, when he fishes, he has to follow the Western fisheries management regulations and the traditional Aboriginal regulations. And then there's obviously essential benefits for people. And I think it's interesting to point out to the fact that these fishing businesses in remote communities are not in direct market competition with the seafood, with the mainstream seafood industry. With the focus on the financial lens, I interpret it as the sort of the support that are required. You know, so obviously this support needs to be underpinned by a better consideration financially of these small-scale seafood enterprises in the remote areas, and there's definitely a need for people in remote areas to be supported, having some I call it an interpreter, you know, someone who is going to help to understand these Western fisheries management regulations that can be very complicated. And then some of the access to markets that also requires this sort of support. And finally, just going to quickly talk about the need for the fisheries management system to cater better for alternative business models that just going to be they're going to be governed by different aspirations, and they need some management, especially in the case of this, you know, which is a fairly relatively new fisheries, a new license type. They need to be from flexibility to cater for the trial error incremental development that happens from this for these fishing businesses, and to yeah, so basically the resources need to be put in to understand how people want to fish, and to have these regulations supporting these practices, as opposed to having practices being guided and driven by the way it is regulated, which has sort of been the case, definitely so far in the experience of Maningrida. Then there's a big issue of scale for people to be involved meaningfully. And then I think the most important point is that fisheries management cannot just be linked to financial outcomes. It needs to be linked to the outcomes that people are trying to achieve through their small-scale fishing practices, and the social, cultural, and environmental outcomes that are essential for people. So thank you very much. That's all I wanted to say. Randall, do you want to add something?
Yeah, thank you. That you welcome that you are listening to Clement, and I am Randall Baraka. That's my Aboriginal name, and I'm part of the Aboriginal name. It's the fish that we call, and people I respect the old people that Clement was just talking about. I can share the people more than they can share us, our stories, and we can live on that and live on our lives forever.
Thank you very much for your attention.
Wonderful. That was excellent. And I love the way you started with asking, you know, these conversations that you had with Randall. It was really important because it's exactly what you said. How can we come up with regulations and management system or even support system without understanding why you fish, what you want to do in your fishing livelihoods, what kind of outcomes you like to achieve? So thank you so much for sharing that. But I wanted to go back. I'm gonna let Tek present, because I'm very curious about this relationship between you and Clement. Okay, I'll get back to that later. Okay, Tek, would you like to share your presentation?
Thank you. So here I'm going to share my presentation. Well, welcome to everybody. Respected Professor Ratana, Professor Yinji, Clement, and other colleagues. So the topic on which I'm speaking on this afternoon is the COVID-19 impact on fisheries value chain in Nepal. Well, when we speak fisheries in Nepal, I think it's all small holdings. All small-scale fisheries or aquaculture are existing in this country. So let me explain more about this coronavirus disease. Everyone knows, and I do not need to explain much more about this COVID-19 pandemic. So to control and to save the life of the people, Nepal also imposed the travel and social distancing rule by declaring, lockdown 2 times. One was very strict one at the beginning from 24 March to August to 2020. Then again in 2021, that is for 5 months. So that time, the first lockdown was real severe. well, I know all the movement was controlled. So this survey I took during that time when the lockdown was so strict throughout the country. As you know that the COVID-19 doesn't affect the fish, but it is very important how COVID-19 lockdown has impacted over the fisheries in Nepal, because it is important in the sense that for the future, again, we might have this kind of pandemic situation, especially a kind of the lockdown situation. So in such situation, how we are going to protect the small scale fisheries and aquaculture, perhaps that is the lesson we really want to document in such kind of the studies. So Nepal is a very, kind of a landlocked country, sandwiched in between the China and India, two economic giants of the world. In this small country, the inland fisheries, which is landlocked, we do not have the ocean. So we are, giving totally focusing on the inland fisheries, and the inland fisheries can be categorized here as a capture one in natural waters and fish farming or aquaculture. And fish farming recently we attempted, and we are trying to divide into two sections, one representing the warm water, another representing the cold water. The cold water means, and the warm water means here in the context of Nepal, since it is the country of the Mount Everest. So it is a a completely steepy country, kind of representing up to the Mount Everest, something like 8,848 meter elevation, tall mountain, and again something like 64-meter downside into the southern plain. It is a tropics, very much similar to the tropics, and flat land. In that flat land, mostly the carp, catfish, tilapia are the most popular species for the aquaculture. In somewhere in between the very high mountain and the flatland, there is another zone that is, kind of not very cold, neither very kind of warm, but it is something like cool water range. In that range, you can also find some very interesting species. That's called the mahasir and katale, and somewhere when the water is coming down directly from the glacier, you can also have the situation, a very conducive environment for the trout rearing as well. However, in a high mountain, trout and asala, this species flourishes very well. And we are also trying to explore much higher than that. In Arctic char, maybe that will be the one of the, probably that will perform very well in this high mountain area. Anyway, the fisheries, the fish farming, or the total fisheries can be divided into warm water and cold water. And the total production is not very high. It is approximately 97,000 metric ton, and some 21,000 metric ton that comes from the capture fishery, and rest of the fish production that comes from the aquaculture. The total per capita production of the country is not very high. It is something like 3.43 kilogram. It shows that there is huge potentiality for further expansion of the small-scale fisheries and aquaculture in the country. It's because one of the reasons that Nepal, though it is a very small country, but has, very three large river system, river basins. On the eastern side is called Koshi, and in the middle it's called Gandak. And in the western side, it is the Karnali river basins. And at the very far west side, there is a Mahakali river. So these are the actually lifeline of Nepal, where plentiful of water can be utilized for different purposes in the country. This is the estimated water surface area. These all comes through the rivers, lakes, reservoir, village ponds, and marginal swamps in irrigated rice fields. So these are the total area, and this is a kind of a conflicting situation. Board of Nepal has recently they showed that the total area of the water surface in Nepal is approximately 2.5%. IUCN had declared something like 5%. And Wikipedia recently, I saw one of the data that's showing that 7.06% of the total area is occupied by the water surface area. So we are not going towards that direction, though there is some conflict in that kind of data. But here, actually, I would like to show and show you that fisheries sector actually contributes not very high, approximately 1.32% of the GDP and approximately 4.22% of the agriculture GDP. Something like 421,000 people, they are involved in capture fisheries according to the government statistics, and most of those capture fisheries are occupied by the women of marginalized and ethnic communities. Therefore, though this is a very small sector, but we think that this is one of the very important one, because it is helping the marginal women and especially the ethnic communities. And something like 54,200 farmers, they are involved in aquaculture, providing some sort of direct employment to 143,000 people. So aquaculture, besides this is a kind of mountainous country and landlocked country, but recently the aquaculture is one of the fastest growing food sector in Nepal, coming up rapidly, very, very fast. However, this COVID-19 pandemic has caused major disruptions on the various aspects, and we see where those all the major disruption caused by the COVID-19 situation in Nepal. So for this study, I collected the data from academic, research, and extension sectors, and I had this questionnaire-based interview using mobile phones. Some 80 participants they replied to my phone calls. They all belong from the fish farmers, traders, processors, government officials, and hatchery personnel, especially those working with the rainbow trout, carp, catfish, and production value chain. So these are some of the species which are very popular among all the farmers in Nepal. This is the rainbow trout. This rainbow trout, I introduced it from Miyazaki Prefecture. I'm very much obliged to the government of Miyazaki and the people of Miyazaki, Japan, for offering this rainbow trout, excellent fish in Nepal. And actually, this fish is performing very well towards the mountainside in Nepal. These are all the warm water species. Earlier, we introduced the those kind of species which were very much, phytoplankton, very much low cost aquaculture technologies using, this silver carp and bighead carp. They subsist on phytoplankton and zooplankton. And these all indigenous carp, Labia rohita, katla, grass carp, they also could be raised very economically, and that can give a kind of direct benefit to the farmers. Later on, we slightly moving ahead towards the sophistication using the pellet feed or the feed ingredients. So among these all the carps, most of the production that comes, the carp is the dominating species, and the 90% of the aquaculture production that comes through the carp polyculture. And among these, approximately 60% fish, they are comprised of Chinese carp, that is common carp, grass carp, silver carp, and bighead carp. And something 40% that contributes, those contributors are the indigenous major carp. And recently, the tilapia and pangas, they are also introduced, and they are performing very well. So here, I'm giving you some of the major points when the breeding season occur of all the cultivable aquaculture species in Nepal. Actually, all the warm water species, they start to show some sort of the breeding, symptoms in the mid-February, and that goes they continue up to the first week of the September, or sometimes a little bit later. Also, contrarily, the rainbow trout, which is the cold water species, they show the breeding, the reproduction performance, they started to show on the mid of the November, and that continues up to the end of the March. This is the kind of breeding cycle of the cultivable species in Nepal, and the showing you some of the going on to the fish import and export situation. Here you can see from 2014-15, the fish import was kind of was reducing down. And we also started to export the fish, some very little amount of fish into the, towards the borderline across the border. So this was the trend. And now I would like to go and show you some of the result and discussion out of my survey. Actually, during the COVID-19, period, the input supply was highly disrupted, especially related to the pangas, trout, and carp production. The input supply, especially the feed ingredients, were disrupted. People, the farmers who were doing this sort of the aquaculture, it was very hard time to obtain the feed ingredients. Mainly the corn, soybean, mustard cake, the import was completely stopped. So side by side, some of the hormone and oxygen, which are used during the transportation of the fish, they were also not available. Fish seed, larvae, and fingerlings marketing also, they are all stopped. Side by side, the farmers, they also suffered with the technical services offered by the, some government officials and some NGOs. Those all the process activities were shut down. Harvesting and marketing was also very big problem. Actually, people, the security, they asked the question and they did not allow to harvest the fish from the pond. The argument they raised was that actually that was against the social distancing rules. So they didn't allow to harvest the fish as well. So that was the situation, and we have to comply. Maybe in future we have to develop some sort of mechanism how to not disrupt that harvesting of the fish from the ponds or the rest. Reduction of fish demand also, the drop down in hotels affected especially marketing and consumption of pangas, which is coming a very, as a very popular farming system. Inadequate refrigeration, absence of cold chains, and they all were just absent. So that hampered the storage. So reduction, that they resulted in reduction of trout production and trout-based tourism also, that was very much badly impacted. The captured fishery, that was also prohibited during the lockdown, especially during the first lockdown phase. As a result, the livelihood of fisher community affected adversely, especially women fishers and many farm workers. So expand side by side some of the activities that was performed by the government sector. That was also very much badly hampered. The peak period of feasibility study, the many farmers, they come to the office and they request for the feasibility study whether the fish farming in their area is possible or not. Those kind of all activities was halted. As a result, extension of more pond construction was also stopped, as well as the very small small business of aquarium fish has also been started in Nepal. That was also, very badly hampered during the COVID situation, COVID lockdown phase. The fisheries capacity enhancement, the government offers so many trainings program to the farmers, and those training programs sort of things was also adversely affected. Infrastructures, hatcheries, fish market sales, fish ponds extension, irrigation plans, those, although they were in government plan, but they could not be implemented during the those lockdown situation. Side by side, in cold water aquaculture, in mountains, trout seed and feed supply become the major issue because the people, they cannot move from one place to another. So they couldn't go, many farmers, they could not travel to purchase the baby fish, the small baby fingerlings. So, a kind of disruption occur into the production chain and the value chain components. Side by side, because there was no selling of the trout at the time, so the farmers who were raising, they had this mortality problem because of the high stocking density. As a result, as a whole, during the lockdown phase, the employment was very badly hurt. So farm workers, including men and women, many of them, they lost their jobs. Side by side, in education, research, and extension sector, There was a negative effect on fisheries education because all institutional universities were closed down. Research was also, not very fruitful, and also the extension people, they could not visit the many farms. Therefore, and the education research and extension study. A new aspect that appeared was the online classes. They were somehow started and were regular during the lockdown phase. There are some positive attributes. Some of the farmers, some of the respondents, they said that actually for some of the farmers, very selective farmers, they said that they were not affected that badly because at that time there was no import of fish from outside of the country. So they had better fish selling opportunities, and they could sell, and since they were kind of, very well aware people, so even during the lockdown, they could contact the higher authorities people. So, and they could, transport taking the, some sort of precautions. So they said that was a kind of not very bad situation because there were no import of the fish, so they could sell even at a higher price. Some of the very selective farmers, they replied in that sense. And the other positive attributes of COVID-19 lockdown was probably Nepal could started an opportunity to develop the online education option system that was now in, especially in urban areas, it is well well accepted kind of communication. People realize also the importance of local value chain for supplying input in emergency. They thought that probably if everything, whatever they require, input supply as well as market, if they are will be in their reach, in close destination, probably even in lockdown phase, somehow they can manage to sell their product and continue the value chain. However, during the lockdown, ultimately we can say that there was reduced fish supply during the lockdown phase, as well as this lockdown created a kind of very much highly increased unemployment situation, and people, they have very poor purchasing capacity during the lockdown phase. So considering these all the things, we have attempted to make some general recommendation how to cope with such a lockdown situation if that that appear again in future. So probably the government should declare fisheries sector, the small scale fisheries sector, as the part of the essential services. So it could operate, whenever necessary, because we are dealing with the live things, live fish. So it should be declared as a part of the essential services to the state. So there will be better opportunities for the country's economy. Side by side, those farmers who are associated with the fish farming or the small scale fisheries. So side by side, we also considered probably likewise as in crop, there should be a provision of minimum support price for fish products. So the people who are associated with the small scale fisheries, they could be a little bit confident, whatever they are, in which profession they are involved, that is much more secure, and they will not, not be suffered so much, and their family members will also not suffer so much, even though there is a kind of lockdown situation in the country. Side by side, probably promotion of door-to-door live fish supply system could also be very much helpful to sustain the small scale fisheries. Side by side, ICT approach, using radio, television, and other media for promoting production as well as on the marketing will also be very much helpful to those farmers, those poor farmers who are associated with the small scale fisheries. Maybe also the electronic portal of producer organizations, that will be very much helpful to sell their products and to give up-to-date information. What is the situation of the fish production? So that kind of electronic portal, engaging the producer organization, those people who are demanding those things, and the supply side prices might would also be very much helpful to promote the small-scale fisheries in such a very difficult time. And services of the technical expert to the farmers should be continued using those all kind of social distancing rule and following everything. The rule of social distancing and fish harvest should also be addressed logically. Maybe, in the name of social distancing, to avoid the fish harvest from the pond should be avoided, and some more, kind of mechanisms should be developed, how we can educate more to those people associated with the security concern. And similarly, probably, prioritization of input supply for fisheries industry should be there by the government, financial assistance and social protection for fish farmers and small-scale fishers should be on place. Governmental institution should be strengthened more, because this pangas, tilapia, trout, they are the commodities which are coming very fast and getting popularity among the farmers. So there should be more and more governmental institutional strengthening to offer more knowledge on pangas, tilapia, trout, as well as into the capture fisheries. So these are all, kind of, this is the consolidation summary of the value chain, how the impact has gone by the COVID-19 on input supply, production, collection, processing, retailing, consumer, individual, institution. So I will not go detailing this, explaining this all in the details, but would like to conclude my talk. Approximately, we estimated that approximately 35% of the fish production was dropped than earlier, affected the job, income, and food security opportunities of the countrymen of Nepal. And to overcome the problems of COVID-19 like situation, promotion of door-to-door live fish supply system, integrating a kind of, popularizing the advantage of fish consumption on radio, television, toll-free phones, electronic portal, could be also very much kind of opportunity, and that's kind of things should be started. So there would be less and less harms to small-scale fisheries. And for resilience, a compact approach, but not scattered approach, maybe that could also be recommended. Maybe everything, if you can bring in a cluster, in a single place or nearby place for services, maybe you can cope easily with the lockdown situation. So these are all my recommendations at the end. So by that way, maybe you can foster and we can assist the promote the small scale fisheries in Nepal as well as in worldwide. With this, I stop here and thank you very much for your attention. If you have any question, I would like to welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tek, for that. Wonderful, very good study, lots of details about what happened, but also really interesting recommendations. And I really think that we need to definitely go back to some of these recommendations, especially now that we have people like Randall in the room. It will be good to hear actually how things are. I wanted to be able to make a little bit of comparison and also generate some of the discussion around these, right? Let's do that, right? Because as you were talking, I think, Randall, you must be facing similar situation in Australia with the COVID-19 restriction. Can you relate to that? What Tek talked about?
Yeah, it's really hard.
Sorry, I think now you're on.
Yeah, the COVID was really hard for me. That has been around for a while. I didn't run the fishes to letting them know that people are my people, that there was something coming towards us. So I need to tell them people to stop for a while, and we waited. Like especially we were right in back home in the community in Maningrida, but someone like people staying around my people taking it in, but it was not really happening that day, the COVID. And these boys are really doing things what they do, and they keep on running it. So
Yeah.
COVID was not really near to us. So we were lucky people,
Yeah.
and we still live on that things all the time.
But it seems to me that the focus of your the context of your where you are, the I'm gonna have to get this right. The Maningrida,
Yeah.
it is very local, right?
Yeah.
And Tek also talk about local. You put a lot of emphasis on that localism of the whole thing, the local value chain, the compact approach. Is that really how we might want to think about small scale fisheries? Can both of you talk a little bit about how that concept of locality or localism, would that help us?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point. And actually, I can relate to in Maningrida, I was very similar to what Tek was describing about seeing the benefits of the local value chain. When the supply chain was disturbed, and import products were in short supply for a little while. The supermarket wasn't selling as many products as usually sold. And then that's where the benefits of having the local value chains really was pretty evident. And that said, actually the disturbances to the businesses with the social distancing rules was fairly similar. Randall mentioned, your business was stopped for a bit.
Yes.
Because you couldn't have people on the boat next to each other or on the and so you couldn't fish for a bit.
Yes.
The relations did change, throughout the pandemic. But both these phenomena are very common, are very similar in a way. And absolutely agree that importance of instead of in Australia, instead of the large scale businesses that are not supplying are not linked to local communities, they're not supplying local communities. Your business is focusing on looking after local people
and looking after cultures like sacred sites. That's what
But what you said, Tek, this is happening because of that kind of restriction in terms of import and etc. But now that we're going back to, not never going to be normal, but there's going to be more flow of trade and products and supplies. How do we maintain that local value chain, the short chain, the one that go back to the community or by the community for the community, so to speak? Because the other corporate system, they're going to come up with, they also have been suffered by the COVID in some ways, and they're going to want to recover as well. What would be what we need to do to sustain that local value chain, knowing that it is working for the communities? Tek, go first, and then I go to Clement.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Ratna. I think this since Nepal is, the fisheries and aquaculture sector is really small, so my context is not on very big scale, large scale, but to promote the small scale fishers and small scale aquaculture. So we thought probably, if you bring all the things in a cluster, the input supply will also be there, hormone supply will also be there, fish traders, nurserymen, hatcherymen are also located in nearby places. So maybe the land, those social distancing rule, especially when the policemen, the security controlling, the restricting the movement, maybe that kind of solution, that could be that kind of, even that situation exists. Probably the local community, local businessmen can resolve their problems by their own. So that is the assumption behind that recommendation.
Is that sort of what you're talking about when you say social enterprise model, to have all the services compact?
Yeah. In the cluster, probably maybe a fish village kind of the things in a very a small town, if all the value chain component are present, probably that can resolve the lockdown. Maybe, the lockdown situation will not be that severe to those producers, the small scale fishers. And another approach, why we going to recommend this kind of aspect, probably that is also associated with you know um, with the kind of power game. For example, the dairy people, they could have been successful to declare the milk as essentials under the category of the essential services. They can, load the milk loaded with the truck, they can move from one town to another because I think their lobbying was so strong, and they can convince the government so easily. But the people associated with the small scale fisheries, maybe they are not that, they cannot convince that fast to the government. So probably if, they are come together and raise their voices, probably that would be heard.
Well, and I like that point, because I wanted to ask Clement and Randall about this role of the interpreter. There must be something about, because on their own, they might feel a little bit intimidated or not as empowered. So how important is that role of interpreter that you mentioned, Clement?
Well, I think given the complexity of a lot of the regulations, that role was very important, in Maningrida. And you were telling me, Randall, as well, like some of the rules gets very confusing and they change sometimes.
Yes.
And so sometimes you need someone to help and explain these rules, for people there. Yeah.
Really
so unpacking. So the legal pluralism context basically said there's so many overlapping level and complexity. So unpacking that, making it easy, right, for people to see where the opportunities are, and they find those opportunities, right? We don't need to do that, but if we can just help making it accessible. So that, because I look at all these fisheries acts and the law and the legislation, even, I don't understand most of it, right? How could we navigate and really know which one of these we can use to in our favor, right? To facilitate what we need to get done. Yeah. So Randall, the relationship between researcher, right, and government. What is it like for you to, I can see that you have wonderful relationship with Clement.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. Actually, that it's in not really like independent days for ourselves, for our people, and government says that are maybe watching me or maybe listening somewhere around the world. So I'm going to try and make myself really proud of myself for my people and doing things what I'm doing. And I want to share the people to come around, maybe yourself, to come and visit around and maybe seeing what the action I do in my party, like fisheries stuff, all them things. And I like the way I'm doing it today.
Wow.
And I wanted to stay that way all my life.
Wow, that's so important. Yeah, because a lot of people, if I wanted to be blunt about this, they probably don't believe that. So to them, it doesn't matter whether you exist or not. Let's just put it bluntly. But to you, it is everything, right? And so what would be the message so that people who are, who really didn't have no understanding, who have no appreciation, and who, because a lot of what you said, Tek, your recommendation, your in a sense, your request to the government, I can see other people making the same. People in agriculture, people in other business, they are all going to be asking for the same thing, arguing that they also need the support. How would we argue that the support given to us matter a
Yeah,
lot more than the
yeah.
support given to others? How would
Thank
you do
you.
that?
Yeah, thank you, Ratna, for this wonderful question. This is a bit difficult, but I would like to reply to this. We require to, recognize and know each other. Your contribution, worldwide, TBTI, that's kind of effort we require to perform, in all countries probably. So the people who are associated with the small scale fisheries, they will also be, there is a theory in social science probably, a pull and push theory. uh, you know, we require to be pushed. We require to be pulled up by, like, your efforts. So in this situation, maybe again, I like the one of the theme of the TBTI, language is power. So
Mhm.
probably from all our, wherever we are standing, wherever we are located, probably we should give a voice to your voice, and so the people, the government could realize one day, actually these people also trying their best, and they want to give return back to their economic contribution to the nation, to the, at the global context as well. Why we are gathered here, we want to, show that this fishery, though it is very small, but it contributes a lot
Yeah.
for the national building and for the, for the global economy.
Mm.
So that kind of steps, I think you are the best example so far. And Clement, as a future scientist coming up,
That's
yeah, we
good.
are very much positive.
Well, let's listen to Randa and Clement and Yinji. I'm
Yes.
glad you're back because you have done a lot to promote small scale fisheries in Japan, from those most invisible position to the
Yeah.
most visible position. So I like to get your comment about what do we need to do, right, to make sure that small scale fisheries in those places are not ignored. But Randall and Clement, what message do we need to send?
Like, you mean the message that I can, like, spread it around, or
Yeah, what would you say?
like,
Yeah.
how
How
to
how
spread?
how how are we gonna make them listen? What do we need to say
I would
to
have been
make them
saying like,
listen and do something?
yeah, I would have been saying maybe say that I know that God gave us that, and Jesus been sharing the people that we've seen it in the Bible, and we following the track what we do, and giving us things what we having it to block the way and keep the way that we wanted to, and like this time that we're doing it now. So actually, the government comes through and maybe it tastes really good, or maybe listen to big stories what I'm doing at the moment, and
Mm,
he'll be coming along someday. And
mm,
some of the days he'll be there, I know, and
mm.
tasting all that fish, and probably I don't know what he's gonna say to me.
I have this one line that I've been saying. I'm saying that a lot of people see small scale fisheries as a problem. We see small scale fisheries as a solution, especially with all that is happening with COVID, with sustainability, with social justice, with everything. All the good things that we want to see in the world happen in small scale fisheries. So therefore, we offer, right, that way out. We offer that, solution, if you like, to all the problems that we're facing. You want to have social cohesion, you come to small scale fisheries. If you want to go with people, you value cultural identity, heritage, stewardship, you come to small scale fisheries. If you wanted to address food security and poverty and gender equality and empowerment, you come to small scale fisheries. But they think that I am romanticizing when I say that.
Yeah.
So I need more evidence. I need more stories in order to go to the people and show it to them. And we do have many stories from what you have been doing. And we just need to be able to tell those stories. So Clement, you are a good storyteller. We need more of you to do that job. Yinji, why don't you share with us some of this experience and example in Japan?
Well, yeah. Well, it's I think, yeah, I really like this. The discussions of this session is very nice. It's the best. And yeah, Ratana, yeah, you're mentioning that everybody is gonna asking the same support. Not the every other sectors they want to same. And that's the thing actually that are happening in Japan. The other sectors, they want the same spaces in the coastal areas. They want the rights of the traditional fishing rights. They want, yeah, they're saying, why is it only the fishers have that right? We want that rights too. So we need to argue. We need to argue for that. Yes, and actually we have the difference principle can use, and it's about equity. It's not about like this equality. It's not the same equality. We need the difference principle. But to do this, yes, the language. We need the language. Yeah, as Tek mentioned, and as what TBTI has been doing, language of power, and yeah, that's the way we need to bring people together to do that ichidanketsu again in here.
Yeah. That is
Yeah.
a
Well, that's what I felt. Yeah.
Right. So Yinji came up with this word ichidanketsu, right? Which is about togetherness.
Ichidanketsu, yeah.
Ichidanketsu, togetherness. So let's have another word from Australia, from Marin. Oh my goodness, Maningrida. What would be the word that in your dialect, in your local language, that you think could motivate people to do something for you?
It's the meaning for us, like it's very important to the family and another regions not far away from me, to come together and be together and think what we wanted to do, and maybe some people like you guys come get them the stories and enjoying yourselves around with us and sharing the stories. And probably maybe second time there'll be someone will be coming along and saying, "Can I taste your fish?" And I say, "You're welcome. Whatever you're gonna share to me, the same thing I'm sharing to you."
Can you say one word in your language about that?
And I wanted to say in one language is Jinja is mine. Angaipa, Chijija. It's fish.
Clement, can you type that in the chat, please, so that I can capture that? And Yinji, why don't you type the word togetherness in English, so that we ichi, so you put it into the chat so that we can capture that. And Tek, while we're doing that, what do you say?
Well,
one word, one symbol, you know. Yeah.
Ekta. Ekta nahi bal ho.
What is that?
Unity is power. Something like that.
Okay. Unity is power. Could you
Yeah.
type it in? Could you type it in the
Okay.
chat?
Okay. Thank you.
And with the translation too. Unity is power. So the word
Yes.
is what? Ekta what? Type it in. Type it
Ekta
in.
is unity.
Yeah.
Ekta nahi bal ho. Unity is the power.
Yeah. Type it in the chat if you don't mind, so that I can capture it.
Sure.
That's the one. Ichi Denketsu, togetherness. Okay. Now we really get it. Ichi Denketsu. I'm putting this in the PowerPoint presentation as the closing of our the whole Congress. So I want those words from you three. What is that? You have to teach us how to say that.
Yeah, sorry. Repeat again. We had a long discussion about finding that word. But now you got it. Yeah. Say again. Nuruticha.
Muruticha.
Nugurikicha.
Yeah, you got it now. Nearly there.
You do it one more time.
Muruticha.
Nugurikicha.
Yes, you got it. You have to practice.
I know. I'm in trouble. Nugurikicha.
Yeah, Muruticha means
Yuru
sharing together.
My goodness, this is going to be tough. Guru Titia.
That's good.
Guru Titia.
Yeah, you got it. You can pronounce it. You now get it now.
You want to explain that word?
Yeah, it's Muruticha means it's coming together, making a big celebration and feeding all that fish and maybe taking back home and making a big stories back to their home where they're coming to saying thank you and all that and saying goodbye, maybe coming back once a day or meeting you or camping around with you. And it's mean that it's mean we all together. Whoever speak different kind of language when we are out there at my home, there's 7 tribes that's we all together.
Wonderful.
And connecting together.
Wonderful. Clement, can you say what language that is? Could you type it in?
Of course.
It's
of course.
Rara.
Just to make sure we really get it. Yuru Titia.
Yeah, you got it now. Well, come on, you're one of us now.
Thank you. What an honor. Thank you so much for saying that. Really appreciate that. Tek, your language?
Yeah. Is ekta nahi bal ho.
Have you typed it in for us?
Yes, I've sent you to Yinji only. Okay, so it went to the Yinji actually. Sorry, just a minute. I will make it. Could you see this?
Well, just put it in for host and panelists or everyone.
Yeah. So yeah. Sorry.
Ekta Naibaho.
Yeah.
Ekta Naibaho.
If you really like to sound very clear, then maybe we should stop with each word. Ekta nahi bal ho.
Ekta Naibaho.
Yes.
Okay.
Unity is the power.
Unity is the power. Ekta Naibaho.
Yeah. Nai is giving stress, and that is a kind of suffix. And that is giving more stress on unity. Ekta, yeah.
Ekta is unity, but Naibaho is giving them.
Nai is giving stress. That is the suffix attached with the ekta. Yeah.
Ekta, Naibaho.
Nai-bal. Yes.
So which word is power? It's a bao, bao?
Bal is power.
Bao is power.
Bal.
And ho?
Bal is
Bao is power. And ho?
Ho is at the end of Nepali language, exactly as they in Japanese language they do this, something like that. Watashi no namae wa gurung desu. In some style. Ho is in Indian language is very Hindi is also very close. Ekta is the power, so they also use this ho, but they say it hai. Maybe it will go a little complicated. Yeah.
No, it's good. Okay, now we have a little bit of a commitment here, right? Now we are in Japan. Yinji and I in Japan. What we need to do is go to Nepal so that we can practice Ekta Naibaho.
Yeah, sure. Most welcome. I would be very much happy to welcome you.
And then we would have to go and visit Randall in Maningrida in Northern Territory. And we know one word in Barara language, which is Juruchitya.
That's sharing together. Sharing together.
Because that is the way we would come back together. Okay, well, I have enjoyed this tremendously, and I really appreciate this opportunity. And we will definitely be in touch with you with the follow-up of this work that we all do. And I really think that we need to do more of this, which is to have good conversation, really sharing the stories and think together in addition to everything else. So good luck, Clement, with your research.
Good luck. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Welcome,
Clement.
Thank you. We just want to say thank you very much.
Thank you very much
for all your wisdom. We feel very inspired, by this session. It's been fantastic to hear all these stories from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rando. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, Brahma.
Arigato.
Come at Maningrida. Come and see at Maningrida.
Oh, sure.
Oh, sure. All right. See you in Maningrida.
Come to Nepal. Yeah.
See you in Nepal.
See you. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.